The New York Times released a lengthy report detailing the accounts of several women who said that they were either sexually harassed or even raped by Russell Simmons. And Russell Simmons has responded to it. So has the NYPD, which has decided to open an investigation into these allegations. Now, 9 women accused the media mogul of sexual harassment and assault in incidents alleged to have occurred over decades. 4 of those women, Drew Dixon, Tony Sally, Tina Baker, and Sherry Hines, accused Simmons of rape. Now, Russell Simmons adamantly denies it. He says, no, that is not what happened. I have not raped anyone, and I am ready and willing to participate in any type of investigation to prove my innocence. His lawyer said the following: Russell Simmons fully supports and will cooperate with the police inquiry and is confident of a swift resolution. Russell Simmons himself released a statement saying that these horrific accusations have shocked me to my core, and all of my relations have been consensual. I am devastated by any reason I may have given to anyone to say or think of me in the ways that are currently being described.
So one quick note here, if 4 women are accusing you of rape, yeah, it shouldn't be like headline news that the police are investigating you. Of course they should investigate you, right? What I don't know is why Harvey Weinstein hasn't been arrested yet. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So Russell's the first one to get the investigation, and he, according to these stories, richly deserves it, right? But his maybe literal partner in crime, right, alleged partner in crime, Brett Ratner, is accused of doing incredibly similar things, and where's the criminal investigation? I literally don't understand it. Why isn't Brett Ratner being investigated? Harvey Weinstein, look, man, none of this stuff is really anywhere close to a line if you believe the allegations, right? But Harvey Weinstein, some of the allegations by well-known actresses are he would literally barge in and then rip their clothes off and rape them while they were screaming. Yep. Why is this guy not arrested? I don't understand.
Right, and for anyone who might think, oh, well, maybe some of these women went directly to the NYPD asking for prosecution or an investigation. No, that is not the case. No one went specifically to the NYPD and asked for an investigation or asked for any type of prosecution. The NYPD doesn't even need to have someone go directly to them. If they see that there is a potential of criminal activity, they can make that decision, take initiative themselves and investigate it, and that's what they chose to do here.
So now, 2 women had gone to the NYPD before. They had done an investigation, but dropped it earlier. But Harvey Weinstein, they had also done an investigation of him and dropped that earlier. How come they haven't picked that one back up? So there's that issue, but that's not the only issue. That's one of the issues. So curious what your take on it is, Aida.
Well, I think that the racial component of this whole thing, and I know people get tired of hearing about race, but I think the racial component is very interesting. Even with Harvey Weinstein, all of those women accused him of rape. When Lupita did it, he said, I didn't touch her. He was like, I'm a sexist and a rapist, but I'm also a racist. So let's not get it twisted. I've worked with Russell Simmons, and I have encountered. So misogyny just exists so much in our business as a comedian. He comes from the world of hip hop, which misogyny is it's just part of the culture, it's embedded in it. And I think that when we talk about these things, Russell Simmons self-admittedly has said that he has experienced an evolution and that now he is in a different place. I don't know if Russell Simmons raped people. I don't know if he sexually harassed people, but I do know that he belongs to a culture and belongs to a group of people who think that women are expendable, that women are disposable, and that women are objects. And to speak to the greater issue, as I was talking to Anna off camera, as a stand-up comedian, that's how I encountered Russell as a stand-up comedian, where I was one of 2 women competing for one spot for a show that was for 6 people. And it is so disgusting, and it is so it is just all, it's a cancer that has run through the entire business, that I have to be worried about what hotel room I stay in, that I'm near the elevator and not stairs, that nobody follows me to my room, that other comedians don't follow me to my room. You talk about Louis C.K. and you talk about Russell Simmons. There is a sea of men who are out here doing these things that many of women of color are afraid to speak out against because they don't want to lose their career. So when I think about, these men, okay, you want to come after Russell Simmons? You got to come after a lot of people. Russell Simmons is one person that you're talking about. You're talking about Louis C.K. This shit is all over the business. Hip hop, comedy, entertainment, politics, you see it. It's running all over the place. And women are always doubted. For somebody to say, I believe you, now it's condescending. You don't understand. I can't even make a point because it's all over. It's all over. So this is just the beginning. And I think that you're gonna be surprised some of the people that you hear that have engaged in this, because it's so acceptable. And it's not just the people who are doing it, it's the people who see them do it and don't say anything or try to brush it under the rug. With Louis C.K., there were allegations. Roseanne Barr tweeted about it years ago. With Russell Simmons, it happened a few weeks ago and they swept it under the rug. And then, it got bigger than.
There was the first wave of women, 2 women who came out with their accusations against him. And he seemed relatively unscathed by that. And then this New York Times piece profiling multiple women, several women, led to him taking some action, stepping away from his businesses and all that.
But look, one thing I just want to say, because I know the bigger problem, Cenk, is what you said, the education of men. Because Matt Damon made these comments today that were very Matt Damon-like. We already know he did it with the race thing, and now he's doing it with the women. Sometimes the education of what sexual harassment is that some people don't think it's sexual harassment because they're so accustomed to believing that we are objects. And that is a problem unto itself.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how the law settles this. Obviously, Simmons is in a ton of trouble here with a significant amount of allegations. And so, but he vehemently denies it. I just want equal treatment for everybody. So it's not to excuse anything that Simmons has been accused of. It's to say you should also hold other guys accountable. And so in cases where people need to be fired, they have. In case of Russell Simmons, he stepped down from his companies. He had done that earlier. But in cases of assault, there needs to be legal consequences for all the people who are charged with it. As long as there's statute of limitations haven't run. I mean, also Roy Moore. There is no statute of limitations on child molestation in Alabama. We have an incredibly credible person that most of the Republican leadership in the country believes, saying, yes, he sexually assaulted me when I was a minor. That guy doesn't belong in the Senate, he belongs in jail. Now we know he's not going to the Senate. I'm not trying to rehash that. I'm just saying, let's have equal justice for everybody here. For the women first, most of all, bring all these guys to justice. And then justice also involves, of course, him being able to defend himself in court. If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.